So questions of trust, power and control lead to questions about anti-Semitism and the power of extreme Zionism. That's the breadth of my talk in part 1. Welcome to part 2. The problem I see is in making any coalition between Jewish people and moderate European nationalists is the question of the United States. As George Friedman said in his talk on the next 100 years on Stratfor Intelligence, I would check that out. He said that the 20th century was all about Germany, but now the next century is all about the United States. And in that, he's talking about the power of Germany and the power of the United States in a comparison, but also of the instability of Germany. And the instability in the United States is what I would be interested in answering the questions of. If Jewish power is divisive, then ultra-conservatives will win, because they will blame everything on Jewish people and then try and corrupt even further, many would say, National Socialists to ultra-conservatism. This would lead to more bombings, more shootings like Utøya and Oslo. If Jewish power is benevolent and brings people together, then the question is, does it bring white Europeans together in a multicultural society, or does it exclude them? And if it does exclude them, then they are if Jewish people have a minority within themselves who are extreme Zionists, who exclude the white European majority, and when I mean white, I mean Roman, Nordic and Celtic peoples of European descent, who are the majority peoples of Europe and the United States, being most Americans are of German or English or Dutch or Swedish descent, and those people are Nordic and Celtic, or they are of Italian descent, Roman. Similarly with Europe, there's the displacement of peoples. But if extreme Zionism is divisive, then this heralds a deep problem, not for just Europeans who are American citizens, but extreme Zionism itself is extreme Zionism on a demographic suicidal course, just the same way as Europeans are on a demographically suicidal course, because extreme Zionism has chosen to rule in the United States in the interest of Israel. That's a criticism said by Kevin MacDonald and other professors. But if extreme Zionism can be moderate, if Zionism can be a unifying force between Europeans and Jewish people, then it could be a positive force. As I said in my videos on Boer independence and a Jewish state in the Horn of Africa, there is common ground for moderate nationalists of the pan-European nationalist school, and as I would call them now, Theo-Sarrazin Social Democrats, to bridge the gap between extreme European nationalists and extreme Zionists, and to bring them back to the centre of the political spectrum. And that would be to divert the problem of the problem or the advantage of Jewish power to the benefit of humanitarian aid and relief throughout the world. Now, the United States already gives vast amounts of humanitarian aid, so I'm not questioning Judaism's humanitarianism. What I am questioning is the motives in some in some cases, on when I have to play this devil's advocate role on this video. Because it's the mistrust of the motives that gives fuel to people who are anti-Semitic. Now, and this will drive them towards ultra-conservatism, which will lead to more terrorism, more Europeans and more Jewish people and more Muslims being gunned down or bombed. Basically, that's the problem that Andrei Breivik has caused in Oslo. The heavy subjects, but if the motivations can be made to be good, if they can be made to be driven towards helping the third world through chartered cities, if they can be made to be humanitarian, then Jewish leadership of the United States, if it does exist, could be a positive force in the world. But what we must stop is if there are extreme Zionists who are weakening the foundations of Western civilization, of which Judaism is a pillar, in my view, one of the pillars with the Roman, Nordic and Celtic peoples, then we must try and make a strategy to make Jewish people Europeanise themselves even further, so that there is no distinction between Europeans and Jews in Europe or the United States, so that it is just a matter of faith, of moderate faith which has Western rational values, such as the Vienna School of Judaism that I spoke about in my Western Rationalism versus Middle Eastern Doctrines video. The belief that Europeans should not have any racial interests, while extreme Zionists see themselves as homogeneous and that Israel should be homogeneous, is another problem. We have to deal with the problem of hypocrisy both on National Socialist side, who says that Jewish people are completely evil, and yet they themselves have killed millions of people, and then blame the Soviet Union on Jewish people. Now, much of the leadership of the Soviet Union was Jewish, but Stalin killed more Jews than Hitler did, and he was a Georgian. Are we blaming all Georgians for Stalin? It's the generalisations that lead us to these chasms between different political factions, which lead to people being pushed in those chasms from which they don't return. Thousands of people have been killed on this issue of anti-Semitism versus extreme Zionism, and you can't bring those people back. But what you can do is you can try and make a cooperative framework, so that or at least make a bridge of peace and understanding between these two groups. Otherwise, it will destroy Western civilization, because multiculturalists and ultra-conservatives will attempt to polarize every debate, saying that any form of questioning about the migration of third world peoples, of which Israel has its own problem with the Palestinians, being it's surrounded by third world countries, which the Arab Spring is trying to bring into the first world. So the Arab Spring is a popular thing. The Arab awakening is a positive thing, as well as a popular thing. That some Israelis see this as a threat is understandable, since there are people walking on buses and blowing themselves up each week. But it's also something which they've been relying on for American support, and they've used the Holocaust as a weapon, and this I find extremely distasteful, and Jewish people should find it extremely distasteful that the memories of their forefathers and mothers and grandmothers has been used as a political weapon by extreme Zionists, not only against Germany, which might be understandable, but against social democrats such as Thilo Sarrazin, against Americans whose grandfathers freed Jewish people from concentration camps, and against English people as well, who did the same as the Americans.